I'd like to welcome everybody to our Norte Solid Waste Management Authority meeting today. I'm going to call this meeting to order. My name is Jason Greeno. I'm sitting in for Chair Cowan. And let's see here. I guess we need to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I apologize. This is my first time chairing a meeting. Roll call. Okay, we'll do roll call first.
Commissioner Berkowitz?
Here.
Commissioner Howard? Yep. Commissioner Inscore?
I'm here.
Commissioner Greeno?
Here. Ready and salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have our public comment section now. Any member of the public may address the Solid Waste Management Authority on any matter on or off the agenda. After receiving recognition from the chair, please give your name and address for the record. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Is there any public comment? Okay. Seeing no public comment, we will move on to our consent agenda.
Motion to approve. Second.
Please pull the vote.
Commissioner Inscore?
Yes.
Oh, we need to do public comment on this. I apologize.
Sorry.
Let's just rein that back. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing no public comment. Any comments from the commissioners? No? All right. Now you can pull the vote.
Commissioner Inscore?
Yes.
Commissioner Berkowitz?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Vice Chair Greeno?
Yes. Okay. So now the consent is
Director's
okay. Ted, you can go ahead with your director's report.
Thank you, sir. So looking at item 2.1, you just approved the consent agenda. I appreciate that. Under agenda item 3.1, we've got a couple letters from Cal Recycle essentially explaining that we need additional engineering review for the documents Mr. Barnes prepared for us as county engineer. So we'll talk about that shortly. One thing I did neglect to mention is that we did postpone the response deadline for the cleanup request for proposals that we issued last month, and the response deadline is now July 3rd. We anticipate presenting the proposals that we received at the next meeting. During this past month, we had repairs that were necessary on the landfill mound, and there were also a pump for well E4 deep was also repaired. We also had scale troubles at the Del Norte County Transfer Station. So for 3 days, two days, essentially it was a network of people, including Bob Nicole from Humboldt County Weights and Measures and Andre from the Shasta Scale Company. They replaced one load cell, and there was significant effort necessary to calibrate the scales. So on one evening, Kira Seymour and Haley Smith were at the transfer station until 10:30, in addition to those techs trying to make sure that our scales were calibrated and ready for business the next day. So we appreciate that, but it did result in some delays for customers those 2 days prior, as all traffic is routed through the inbound scale. We had some vandalism at the Gasky transfer station that resulted in a broken window, and at the refuse site attendant shack, and some bullet holes in a metal sign that displays the rates. We had to update those signs anyway, so I've added the request that we replace that sign. We had our first bear visit at the Klamath transfer station on June 9th. He took a bag of rubbish and rubbaged through it adjacent to the forest. Bear didn't appear to find any food, and the scattered trash was cleaned up. So that hasn't been as much of a problem since we got those heavy lids that were prepared by Recology, and it's been unusual for any bear activity after hours, and this was actually when we were open and the bin was open. So the bear, seeing other people there, just grabbed a bag and ran off. But like I said, I'm very grateful that he did not find any food, because then he would probably be back. We are continuing with negotiations with SEIU 1021, representing the authority employees, and the authority employee agreement does expire this month, but legal counsel Martha Rice advises that the existing agreement will remain in force until a new agreement is negotiated. So that concludes the director's report. I'd be happy to answer any questions, or shall I move on to the financials?
I'm good.
Any questions? All right, go ahead.
Okay. Moving on to the financials, we have 1.135 million in the bank, essentially, plus 198,000 for the last month's rent. So that's pretty much as we would expect. Looking at claims approved by director, once again, the largest payment by far is to Hambro WSG for the good services they provided at the Del Norte County Transfer Station. Continuing on through the financials, thankfully, traffic was back up in May, so we are still about $19,000 behind budget on the authority revenue, but we're approximately $30,000 ahead of budget on the franchise fees. But unfortunately, because of the delays at the scale and some medical issues for one of our staff, that report is not ready for this meeting. So we'll include that in next month's report. That concludes the financial reports.
Ted, any ideas of why May was down as much as it was?
Well, May was actually, it was up compared to the prior months if you look at it. So for instance, last May we were doing cleanups, and I think that was one of the big months when they were doing the Pacific Shores cleanup. So relative to last year, it's way down, but compared to what we expected, it's still a bit ahead of budget. So but this is our normal business cycle. Come the spring and summer months, we start seeing an uptick in business, and so this is more or less what we would expect.
Just because it's easier for you to give it to me than for me it is to figure this out.
Okay.
Where are we? So we're about $20,000 behind in revenue.
From the transfer station, but we're about $30,000 ahead of budget from the franchise fees. So net
So our
net
net
result
is
is
at
our revenues
10,000.
are a little bit ahead.
So we're 10,000 to the positive.
That's
All right,
correct.
that's all I need. Thank you.
Ted,
Yes, sir.
question for you here. We have a couple of entities, Reservation Ranch and another one that are more than 90 days past due, and yet it seems like they're current on others. What is the plan to collect that past due?
I believe you'll see that if they're over 90 days past due, they have been turned over to collections. So the AAR report, essentially up to 60 days, we're still working with them to try to get payment, and then once it gets to 90 days, they get turned over to collections, and then it's out of our hands.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Okay? That concludes the financial reports.
alrighty. So we are now on landfill post-closure. In our agenda, we're going to discuss have discussion and possible action regarding negotiating and drafting a change order with Stillwater Science for review of a non-water corrective action plan for Crescent City landfill.
Right. So a couple of the laws that we have to abide by with respect to the landfill are planning out worst-case scenarios. Were there to be a release meaning a release that impacted water quality or environmental quality adjacent to the landfill. So you have to do two flavors of this report, a water-related release and a non-water related release. And these documents were prepared by Jim Barnes, county engineer, and more or less technically they were accepted by Cal Recycle, but they're also technically rejected because Jim Barnes works for the county and the county owns the property. And so they have required us to do an additional engineering review. I don't anticipate this to be a very expensive effort, but so the quickest and easiest way to do this is to negotiate a change order with one of our existing engineering contractors. And we have two of them currently. We have Stillwater Sciences that's helping us doing the siting study for the Northern Transfer Station. And we have Lawrence and Associates, who helps us with the water quality analysis for the Crescent City landfill as we report it to the Regional Water Quality Control Board. So my approach towards this, if the board concurs, is to negotiate a change order with Stillwater Sciences, and presuming that the price is reasonable, that we would bring that back for potential approval by the board to conduct that limited effort work. If the cost that they propose ends up looking more than I think is reasonable, then I would also ask for a price quote from Lawrence and Associates. So if the board is good with that general direction, then I'll
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Any public comment on this issue? Okay, can you pull the vote, please?
Commissioner Berkowitz?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Inscore?
Yes.
Chair Greeno.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And the last, but I think the highlight of today's meeting, is we're discussing the first ever Tansy Games, which will start on June 22nd and continue through July 22nd. And Janet Gilbert has done a lot of the work leading us up to this point. I'd like to invite her to speak to the board.
Good afternoon. I'll give you a brief update and answer any questions that you have. I'd like to first pass out posters. You may have seen some of them about town. It's probably got approximately 100 posters throughout the county. So
You need to take it to.
I've been working with several agencies, both the Department of Agriculture and the Farm Bureau and the Weed Abatement Committee and lots of private citizens, and spreading the word. And it's very exciting. It's an interesting contest in that it's almost like an ultra contest. You have to maintain the discipline of going out there and seeking out your tansy for 4 weeks. So that makes it kind of unusual. We have 3 categories of, actually we have 4 categories of prizes that we'll be giving, and those are a grand prize for the most tansy brought in for a team, a grand prize for the most tansy brought in by an individual, and a grand prize for the most tansy pretty much donated to the school of their choice. So we'll be giving out a school award for the people who get behind. So anyone can bring in their tansy and say, you know, this is all the tansy I got and I'm not going to win anything, but I can donate this to my favorite school. And that way we can give the schools back a little bit and actually start promoting more environmental stewardship and invasive weed and education at the school level too. So we're excited about that. We also have gifts given by the community and different businesses. We will be promoting the donors at the fair with posters acknowledging and thanking all the donors who have given gifts to the project here. And those will then be raffled off on one of the dates at the fair. So anybody who's entered the contest at any time can actually still then win something for their work, essentially. So we're excited about that because everybody has an opportunity to win something, which would be a very nice gift from the community. And they also have a chance to win cash prizes for those who really can put together a team or individually can work, or who's lucky enough to have a lot of fields that have a lot of tansy in them and they're going to get out this summer and pull it all. So that's very good. The rules to bring the tansy in are exactly the same as they've always been, that they need to be bagged, the flower heads down in the bag, tied off so that we're not going to be dispersing any seeds when you travel with your tansy to get it to the transfer station. It would then be weighed. They do sign a release to enter the contest, and then we enter them into the computer that can keep track of every time they come in how much tansy they bring. And then we'll add up all the totals and announce the winners at the fair in August. And that's the gist of it, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
No, I just want to say you've gotten great response from the local donor
Resource Conservation District and your presentations out there. I'm glad to see you working with Linda Crockett and presenting out there. I'm hoping for a lot of success with this. Obviously, this is a weed that plagues our county. I'd love to see it eradicated again someday.
Yes.
So let's, yeah, very happy with these efforts. Glad
Thank
you're
you.
volunteering your time.
Thank you. It is the inaugural event, and I'm sure we'll tweak it. We're thinking maybe of some, maybe a grant with a multi-pronged attempt next year that might include some of the biological control, because a lot of the feedback from the Resource Conservation District was that one of those little flea beetles was very successful. So I think if we have a multi-pronged attack of pulling tansy, getting the word out. I met with the Northwest Trail Riders Association, and they are very happy to see, and they're promising me a lot of tansy, but very happy to see that, again, that it's their livestock, their horses that they're protecting too. So it's looking very positive, and I would just say, you know, if you see somebody, talk up tansy. And the fun part is almost everybody who's grown up here has a tansy story, that when I tell them what I'm doing, they go, oh, tansy, let me tell you about tansy, you know. So it's been fun to meet all the business owners and the people who have tansy stories.
For those of you who might be watching at home, we do have sign-ups through the website for the Solid Waste Authority. So that's recycledelnorte.ca.gov, and just click on the button that says Tansy Games 2019.
Yes.
What a great opportunity.
All right.
And I can't let you keep my posters, I'm sorry. They're already promised.
Well,
We'll give them back.
You'll get those back.
All right. Very good, thank you.
Okay, it looks like we have come to the end of our agenda, and I will adjourn this meeting until Tuesday, July 16th, 2019 at 4 p.m.
Thank you all.
Awesome. There you go.